Thank you, Honourable Member Asmani. The Chair recognizes the Honourable Member for Foxhill.
Yeah, thank you. Madam Speaker, I wonder if I can just say before I start that I may be going a few minutes beyond 1 o'clock with the leave of the government leader. Because I want to start off where the Deputy Leader of the Free National Movement started off, because as you were talking, I remember when I first met you, you and the now ambassador to New York, to the United Nations, were running around playing basketball on a street side court. And so it's always a special honor for me when I look around the Parliament and see the 10th of May of this year will make 32 consecutive years that I've been in Parliament, if you count the years in the Senate. And I've made it a more or less a general sort of axiom of my life to encourage people to get into public service, whether you're F&M or PLP. Just choose a side and get into the business of public service. And I've been fortunate enough to see many, many people grow into these roles. And that's how it happens sometimes. That's how it happens. But the point is to get into the arena. And there's a lot of sacrifice. I'll come to that later when I want to talk about Don Saunders and his contribution to the public service. But I just wanted to say that, and that continues to be the thing, to encourage people to come into public life. And somebody's got to do it, so it may as well be you. And do it well. And there's a lot of sacrifice. It's a thankless job, and you get attacked, as the Anglican hymn says, foes press forth from every side. But, you fight them, even when you're tilting at windmills. You fight them. That's the way it goes. I want to first say thanks to the team that supports our minister who brought this bill, very important bill, as the Deputy Leader has said. And I'm sure Sharon and her team have done good work in trying to get this all organized and get us to the point. I do want to thank also, Madam Speaker, though, before starting, the Deputy Speaker of the the Parliament in Botswana. We just did it. The Prime Minister led a state visit there, and I want to thank him for showing us around the new Parliament building, which they have, and which, we're campaigning for a new building here. And I just want to encourage you that, the United States Embassy cannot be the emblematic building of Nassau, the city of Nassau. It cannot be. So
I agree.
we got to do something about this, and quickly. All right. Now, Madam Speaker, my father, born in 1919, left school when he was 14. He went to a school called Boys Central, which is now C.R. Walker, later became Western Junior. And when he left school, he went to the Board of Works as an employee and as an apprentice. He trained. The Board of Works was situated where the Nassau Street courts are, opposite the St. Agnes Cemetery. And he trained there as an auto mechanic. And he prided himself throughout his lifetime. And he got pretty high up in the field, went into management. But he prided himself on the fact that he always said that a good mechanic does not come home with a greasy coat. A good mechanic keeps a clean car when he's worked on it and comes home with a clean coat and clean hands. And my siblings and I, there are 5 of us, had a wonderful life. This is a tremendous man with that particular education. And one of the things we enjoyed as children is sometimes he got to bring the cars he was fixing home. So sometimes new cars, we couldn't afford new car, but we got to ride when he was doing the test rides at night, and we really liked to go under the Gregory's Arch and shout out because you'd have an echo come back. I don't know why children love these things, but it was a really good experience. He went on to start working at Kelly Motor Company, which was then the Ford dealership, which later became ABC Motors. And then there was another place near the old ice house near the University of the Bahamas. I've forgotten the name of it. But in each of those cases, he was a service manager and eventually ended up working at the Ministry of Works. Cliff Darling, the former Governor General, has a similar story. Leaves Chester Acklands at 14, comes to Nassau, and happened to work as an apprentice barber with my grandfather, a man named Sonny Ford. And that, of course, he parlayed into a life of public service. Ended up serving in the Senate and then becoming a member of Parliament, then a minister, then speaker, and then Governor General before retiring from public life. So apprenticeship is important. It's important in passing on the skills, just as you heard from the Member of Parliament from St. Barnabas, and it is important in politics. As I said at the beginning, that everybody should come into the public arena. And what is interesting about my own career is that, notwithstanding any side that I've been on, it's always interesting to see people call me from any side and say, how do you think I ought to handle this? And I've treated that as a special honor and learned to protect people's confidences when they ask for advice. And people also may not know that sometimes the other side will call you and say, look, I can't say this, but I think you need to say this. I can't say this, but you need to say that. So sometimes that happens. The apprenticeship bill, again, I hope, is an encouragement for males to get more involved in the society and engaged in the trades in this society. I was talking to my friend Raynard Rigby this morning about this issue and reflecting on those who showed up to the swimming pool in Fox Hill on Easter Monday. And the pool is full of kids and a lot of little boys. But in the whole time that I was there, the 3 hours I was there, I saw one male parent. Everybody else was female. And I didn't reflect on this until we were talking about this morning. And the question again goes to what was said before, because the males have to begin to be more engaged in this society. If all of these social problems that we keep saying are a consequence of that are going to be solved ultimately, because that's where the little boys get their best example. It's never been an issue for me because my father was present at all times. I never heard my parents have an argument, no fight, no nothing. He supported to make sure that we went to school and all of it. It is therefore unusual for me when I run into men and women who are adults today in their 40s and getting on to 50 who still feel a loss because their father wasn't present in their lives. So obviously this makes a huge difference, the engagement in the development of children coming up. And if there's a message which goes out from all of us this time, I hope, is that. Justice Thorne, who used to preside over many of the domestic cases in the Bahamas, made the observation upon his retirement that one of the things he found about Bahamian law was that it was too easy for men in this country to simply walk away from their responsibilities and there's no redress. So we got to work on that, all of us as men. The apprenticeship regime of the bill is something like this. There's a board, an apprenticeship board. And then there's an executive unit which supports the work of the board. And the board is largely responsible for setting in place the policies, programs, and directions of how apprenticeship ought to be carried out, And then there are these special units which deal with specific trades. And at each point, people who are in these various trades are called by the society to join these councils in order to give advice and counsel on how you ought to develop standards with regard to these trades. And it's an instant issue for me because I had made the observation a couple of days ago to some friends that there is a misalignment in this country between the skills set which is available and the job opportunities. You heard the minister say they've got hundreds of job opportunities, but they don't match the skill set. So I happened to stay at one of the hotels out west a couple of days ago. 2 o'clock in the morning, I get up and try to take a walk along Cable Beach. And as I come outside the Hyatt Hotel, there are people speaking Creole, and they're cleaning the pavements outside the hotel. Not one Bahamian-speaking person was present there. So I asked the Minister for Immigration, what's going on here? And he says that companies, Bahamian companies, get hired by contract with the hotels, and they can't find the labor, Bahamian labor, to do these jobs. And so the result is you have foreign labor doing this work. A Bahamian businessman described to me just this morning, after the public holiday, he says his business sits on edge because after a public holiday, he's not sure who's going to show up to work on Monday. So someone put it down to attitude toward work. A colleague was telling us a story of having solicited and found a job for an individual only to be told to get a phone call to say, that job is too far from where I live. Can you get me something closer to where I live so I can go and hail my friends under the tree during the day? Another said, my son says that job's too far away from where I live because, can you get me something closer? Because transportation is an issue to get to where you want me to work. So find me something else. And that's what members of parliament face. The fact in our country is this. Last year, the Bahamas government earned $100 million in work permit fees. $100 million. So that means there's no disincentive in plain economic facts to not grant work permits because it's helping to pay the bills of the country. Well, I don't know. I don't know whether it's a new industry or not, and I'm not seeking to support sarcasm. But what I'm saying is that people have to understand the facts of how this economy operates. And if we are to seize what Michael Manley called the commanding heights of the economy, we, Bahamians, have to engage in the economy. And that means making sure that our children understand that they have a responsibility to train themselves in order to take advantage of the opportunities in this economy. And all the things, my little social commentary and all the rest of it, I'm not an expert on any of these things, just observations that I've made about the way things operate and what we have to do. So again, I'm saying it appears to me that men have to step up to the plate again, because that is where there appears to be a manifest dysfunction. So I want to, again, applaud the minister for bringing the bill and for giving the opportunity to raise some of these matters. I want to say, therefore, in connection with this general theme that I've been raising, there's a real tragedy, and people have spoken to it here today, with the death of Don Saunders. Because, you know, politics aside, and I hate to even be putting things in parentheses, right? But here's a man who comes from humble beginnings, you got to say that, is raised in part by an Anglican priest who moved from Archdeacon Keith Cartwright, who moves from Grand Bahama, goes to Exuma. You heard the Deputy Prime Minister speak about the relationship there, and becomes what all of us have said we aspire for young men to be, and goes to a place of relaxation on a weekend where every citizen should be free to choose a place to entertain yourself with your friends, and to end up dead having done that. It's just a natural disgrace. And then for the spinmeisters afterwards to be running these nasty, filthy stories about this and that, as if that excuses somebody being dead. Because the point is, even if those things were the case, that does not excuse your being dead. It ain't got nothing to do with it. Got nothing to do with it. And I'm just outraged by it, that this could happen. And I told the story of my godfather, Levi Gibson, who died when he was 94. And the newspapers, in the twilight of his years, the newspapers call him up on the phone because he was H.G. Christie's aide at the time that Harry Oakes was murdered. So they questioned him about some stuff. Clearly, you know, no responsible journalist should have repeated that stuff, but they did. And I realized, and I said at the funeral, that one of the responsibilities you have for your friends, for your family who are gone, when they're gone, they can't defend themselves. In this country, you can't sue anyone after they're dead. So newspapers and everybody could go at you because there's no defamation of the deceased. The National Security Minister said he was thinking of looking into the issue of whether or not estates can now... Sorry? No, there's no remedy, unless we intervene by law to do so. That's the situation today. So they go and say anything they like, and there's no redress against it. So the only redress is really you, your friends, your supporters, your allies have to defend the person who's gone, and to speak up, and to say, no, that's not the kind of conduct we are supporting. We're not supporting that conduct. And that's the way I feel, and the sentiment I want to express here today, that we have to protect our friends and allies. And in doing so, let us hope that this moment I also, because I've addressed this with my colleagues as well, there is a view, generally speaking, and I tread warily here but I told Clay I'm at the end, closer to the end than the beginning. So I'm prepared to take the hit for it. But I would say this, right? There is this view that politicians have endless pockets out of which they can just dole out money to anybody who comes along for any reason. And I say it in connection... I say it in connection... No, I say it in connection with this man's death because knowing the personal circumstances of the sacrifice of his own life, you got to wonder what's going to happen to this man's family now. You know, and Pindling said at I think it was at Morris's funeral, Shadrach Morris's funeral. He said, you know, we were sitting around after the funeral at the repast. He said, boy, you know, one of the things we do is we We don't treat you right in life, but we sure know how to bury you. You come and say all these grand things about you're a great fella and so on and so forth, right? And we love you, and we're going to support you, and blah, 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 blah. I hope you're his colleagues. I hope you really mean that. I really hope you mean that. I hope you mean that. I hope that the Parliament will agree that this problem of handing off to the next generation of politicians and leaving people impecunious after service in public life is resolved. And as I say, the public will go nuts over this. Candia Dames will have a great time. Fred Mitchell this and all the rest of that. But I'm prepared to take the hit on this one, because it cannot be left to the next generation. Cannot, should not. Right? Sammy Isaacs is my first cousin once removed, and he was one of the first PLP members of Parliament elected in 1956. And my parents, my mother and those, warned me about going into politics. Do not go into politics because you end up getting into financial trouble and you have to back notes and this and that, and people don't pay. Just don't do it. But someone's got to do it. Someone's got to do it. Sorry? Yes, right. That's what I'm saying. So the whole list of things have to be addressed. The whole list of things have to be addressed. And I don't expect that there'd be unity on it, but I think we just have to push the matter forward. The same way as I was talking about this building and what we have to do. Like, we can't. This building, I can say it again. 1815, we've been sitting in this building. It's clearly inadequate. In 1815, it was the representation of the wealth of that day when the Loyalists moved to the Bahamas. We are 50 times more wealthy today than in 1815. And we got ourselves cramped up in this building, which is not representative of the pride we feel in a nation we created called the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Just ain't so. And we keep kicking the can down the road because we're afraid the public is going to eat us alive. Anyway, so I just want to get back to Don again as I express my condolences on his passing. A really unfortunate event. You all are supposed to be burying me, not me burying you. That's the way I look at it. And Obie Wiscombe is not here. I thought about Nemore. Fenton Nemore is not here. Charlie Maynard. I was shocked out of my socks when I got the phone call that he collapsed in Abaco. I said, geez, I remember when this is Dud's little kid running around the rallies. And the question is, what's left after it's done? So the Cabinet's agreed that in this new dispensation where the Parliament is taking over its own business, that there ought to be a division of the House which deals with the issues that you have spoken about, former Prime Minister. The health matters, the pension. Yeah, I told that story of Gerald Cash. How much time I got? Yeah, Gerald Cash. Gerald Cash is the former Governor General, served for 10 or 11 years. And he retires as Governor General. One day, sorry.
Madam Speaker, I move that the business of this House does extend beyond the 1 o'clock hour.
Seconded. Thank you, honorable members. It has been moved and seconded that the business of this House proceeds beyond the 1 p.m. hour. As many are in favor, will remain seated. Those opposed will stand. The motion is carried. The business of this House will proceed beyond the 1 p.m. hour. Honorable member, you make it.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. So Gerald Cash, the Treasury was over there in what was then the Adderley Building. And so I go in there, I think I was in the middle of my pupillage or something, and I went in the Treasury Building for something. And I see Gerald standing up on the line. So I asked him, well, what are you doing here? He said, I had to come here to verify that he was still alive. I forget what they call it.
Verification.
Right, this verification. I said, man, you know, we got to be better than this. I mean, you know, the former governor general, you know. So I was just reading up. It's not only us. Harry Truman was president of the United States, makes $100,000 a year as president 1 year, most powerful man in the world, drops a bomb on some people in Japan. And so next day, he's not president anymore. That year, he made $34,000 a year in income. And the situation was so bad in terms of his being able to keep himself going that the Congress of the United States eventually intervened and created a pension act for former presidents, which now exists today. And that's what it was done under former Prime Minister Ingram, where the, was it Pension Act? Parliamentary Pensions Act was put in place. So, yeah, was put in place. And I remember when Lyndon Pinling tried to increase the salaries of members of Parliament, and there was a huge row in the House of Assembly over it.
The chair recognizes the honourable member for Kalani.
No, Madam Speaker, I totally endorse what the member said. But anyone, and I would hope that the member that would complete this process, I want to point out that one of the things that I tried to do but failed was introduce an insurance for sitting members as well as after they leave Parliament, because some of your own members had difficulties and the challenges faced. And we came up with a formula, and I tried to convince many that it doesn't affect me, because as former Prime Minister, I'm automatically covered with health, so it doesn't affect me. But the formula we used but couldn't get through was that once you were a minister and you complete parliamentary responsibility, you now in public life, you have the option of maintaining insurance, and the government would pay 80% and you pay 20%. If you were a parliamentary secretary, you have an option again. The government would pay 60% and you pay 40%. If you were a member of Parliament or a senator, the government would pay 50 and you pay 50. And I thought that was reasonable at the time. But I hope you would carry it through so that there are a lot of individuals after leaving Parliament, they have no form of coverage. And once you hit 60, you cannot get coverage anymore. It can cost you $3,000, $4,000 a month. You can't get, and that's when your health care starts to go down. So I would hope that you bring something like that and it's supported.
Well, you know, I was there a long time, and we've tried. Our own cabinet has had 2 bites of the cherry with trying to do this, and each time, yeah, each time you get pushback on the subject. But I think what is happening now is that we are being called on an ad hoc basis to provide death benefits, to provide health benefits, to provide emergency care for former members of Parliament and senators, almost on a monthly basis. And it just seems to me that if you look at the equation, the mathematics of it, it simply makes sense to design some insurance to deal with this, as opposed to the Bahamas having to drain on the exchequer to deal with this on an ad hoc basis. And that's the argument that I've been. Right. Well, the House is in, I said, we've taken the step now. The House is in charge of its own business. The House is in charge of its own business. You've got the Parliamentary Commission, and you've got the Management and Budget Committee of the House. So I hope that the brave words that are being spoken do not become a wallflower behind the scenes. Yeah. So those are some of the things. But I did want to say, former Prime Minister, since you intervened, this final thought. I don't consider public disclosure a joke. I don't consider it a joke. I understand you were quoted as saying the Bahamian people look at it as a joke. But I want to say, for my part, I do not consider it a joke. Public disclosure. I was here in 1976 when the PLP almost broke apart over Lyndon Pindling trying to put in place this public disclosure bill. So I support the public disclosure bill. What I've become in my old age irritated about is these journalists calling me every minute about did I disclose, and I tell them none of your business, you know. Just to be honorary. But I want to assure the public that I take this matter deadly serious and I conform to the law. I conform to the law, as do all of my colleagues. We conform to the law. The Public Disclosure Commission has all the powers which it requires if it needs to investigate anybody's disclosure, and can do so. Free to look up and down, inside and out. I got nothing, no out, so do whatever. Look. So I just wanted to make that point, that I support public disclosure, I conform with the law, and never mind my, disposition to the press. I do support the law. I told Clay, the member here, that I remember, I think I told this story before, my father, in his last years, before we took the keys away from him, because he couldn't drive the car, good man he was, he used to travel around with a cutlass on the side of the seat in the car. And his answer for everything was, if only I had my cutlass. We had to tell him, look, man, where are you going with this cutlass? Oh, boy. But I support the bill, and I thank you very much, Madam Chair.